Recording in progress. There we go, my darlings. Right, so what we are doing today is we are talking about the hara, the tanden. They don't strictly speaking mean the same thing. Hara means abdomen, actually, but we use it to refer to the tanden, which is the bottom energy center that we work from in Reiki. So there are 3 tandens. There's one in the abdomen, one in the center of the chest, and one in the head. And so when we use the word hara, we're talking about the low tanden. We're talking about the one that's in the abdomen. So I will use the words interchangeably because I just do. Largely in this context, they mean the same thing. And the reason that I wanted to do the Reiki Skills Lodge on the hara is because I consider it to be a basic, like a foundational aspect of Reiki. This is where we work from. But I have met a lot of people recently from different Reiki lineages who were never shown where it was on the body, who have never worked from there. And I was quite baffled by it because it's so foundational. I actually don't know rightly how to do it without using the tanden. And certainly for Reiki masters, there is a few Reiki masters on the call, I have no idea how to do an attunement or empowerment method without connecting with the tanden. I physically don't know how it could be done. It's one of those things that sort of seems to have been lost. I don't know if it's just in recent teachings. I don't remember ever coming across it back in the day. Yeah, very strange. So I want to talk about it because it's really, really important. And I think the issue with it is that Reiki has become, it's very heart focused and very intuition and visionary focused. But those are the higher tandens. You're supposed to start at the one in the bottom, the one in the hara, and then move up through these. And I think it maybe is accounting for some lack of grounding in the teachings in Reiki these days. I could be wrong. It might be nothing to do with that, and I might just have been coming across some strange teachings. But actually, the idea for Uzui was that we would work from the tanden, from the lower hara. We would work from there, from Reiki 1 onwards. That was the understanding. So I'm just going to kind of describe where it is. I realize I've done it again where I've positioned, I can't position the camera really in a way where I can point to my own hara in a way that will actually work. Maybe if I come up on my knees. Here we go. So I'm not going to get my belly button out, don't worry. You are operating a couple of 2 or 3 finger breadths below your belly button, and about 1/3 of the way in is kind of where I feel it. Now, all our bodies, that's quite arbitrary, those measurements. All of our bodies are different. Our energy bodies are different. So there might be slight variation on that, but it's, what I want to say is it's not the sacral chakra. Because I do hear people say, oh, it's the same thing. It's not. The sacral chakra is lower in the body. You're talking about sort of being down in the womb energy and whatever. I don't know how it feels in a boy body, but you know, that's where we are. We're in our sort of that kind of real early development, but also the sexual connection, and that deep creative energy. Down in the body, it's much lower. The tanden is actually a bit higher. It's up by the navel, and there's no navel chakra. We have to remember this is a Japanese system. It didn't use chakras at all. And so it's just, obviously it does work on chakras, but it didn't use those. So that's where we're working from. And if you've ever done any Aikido or Tai Chi or Qigong or any of that, it's that place. They all work from there. All those Eastern martial arts all work from there. And that's where we're doing our Reiki from. And in Japan, it's where you would do any form of creative art, any form of creative expression, any form of energy work, any form of yeah, all the martial arts and stuff are all operating from there because it's the center of our gravity, but it's also considered to be the seat of the soul. And it's considered to be, I guess, these higher ones sort of develop over time and when you're younger. But the Tanden, the hara, is considered to be the one that you're born with. This is the seat of your personal power and your own true essence, your own soul energy in the body. So we need to be working from here in order to be really grounded. And in if you've ever done Tai Chi, and sometimes I like to play with this with Reiki students as well, you get if you get people to stand and really focus on that, you can feel where someone else's hara is on their body, and you can't push people off balance if they're grounded in that part of the body instead of in a different higher up part of the body. So it's really important for us to focus on. I don't understand how it's got lost in some lineages, because Azui was definitely working from here, and all the lineages that came down via Hawaii Takata was also working from here. It was part of that system. And in fact, the hand positions that Hawaii Takata was teaching, we tend to work from the head and then work our way down the body when we first learn how to do it. But there was another school of thought that said you start at the abdomen, because it was so important and foundational in Japanese Reiki. And apparently, what was his name? Chijiro Hayashi, the guy that taught Hawaii Takata, they used to have two people around the treatment beds in their like little Reiki clinic. One would be working on the head and the other would be working on the abdomen. So it was considered to be like super important place to work on for healing. So I thought we'd start with a little energy exercise to make sure we're all feeling where it is in the body. And I will say, if you can't actually feel it, you can just intend and the energy will go there and it will be fine. The more that, if you haven't really worked with it for a long time or you haven't worked with it before, you can just intend that that's where it's going. And as you practice and use it more, you end up being able to feel it physically. And then the more often you do it, the stronger and more grounded it is. So we're going to do an exercise called Joshin Kokyu Ho, which means focusing your mind with the breath, but it is a hara defining, a Tanden developing exercise. So I'll talk you through it as we do it. We're just going to go straight in. So first of all, I'll just get you to take a couple of deep breaths. Close your eyes and take a moment to connect in with Reiki energy. And you can connect to the source however you like to connect to the source. So if you want to raise your palms up, then do. If you want to connect just by visualizing or coming into prayer position, either is fine. Just feel yourself strongly connected with source. And we're setting an intention that we're going to work from the Tanden, from the hara, using Joshin Kokyu Ho. So just resting your hands on your lap, palms upwards and open. Working with the breath on each in-breath, drawing energy down from above through your crown, taking it down through that central channel of energy inside your body, feeling it connect in with the Tanden, just beneath and behind your belly button. You can just imagine it happening with each in-breath. Even if you can't feel it. With every in-breath, drawing more energy down through the crown into the Tanden. And with every out breath, releasing that energy through the whole body in all directions. So breathe the energy in through the crown. Breathe the energy out through your whole body. Keep a gentle, even breathing rhythm. We don't need deep breaths here. And in that very brief pause between breathing in and breathing out, just let that energy build and strengthen in the Tanden before on the out breath it spreads through the body and out into the universe in all directions. Breathe in through the crown to the Tanden. Build, strengthen, spread through the body and breathe out into the universe. Just taking a moment in that breathing to notice how the Tanden feels. Notice how your body feels since you've started that breathing. And when you're ready, just allowing that flow of energy to slow and then stop. Feel your attention centered on the Tanden and then spreading out to your whole physical body. No longer actively flowing that Reiki energy, just bringing yourself back in your own time. We're all back. How does that feel? Is there anyone who's doing Joshin Kokyuho for the first time? I think most of you have probably done it before. It's a good reminder of where we are working from. I found some really sweet translations of the hara, well, of the Tanden. I've got all my books out. I've been Reiki nerding all day. It's been really nice because it's raining and I was like, oh, well, I'll do some work. And then I don't know, I fell into some books and I couldn't get out. It's been really, really fun. There's some really fun little things about the word. There's a whole chapter on the hara and the Tanden in The Inner Heart of Reiki by Franz Stein, which is a really good book. Franz and Bronwyn Stein have written some really good books about Reiki, and they have a great website as well, which I think is called the International House of Reiki. but don't quote me on that. They do some really nice work about the techniques and the foundational concepts. And I really like the wording that they work with here. So Franz Stein says the word hara literally means abdomen. Tanden means field of elixir or ocean of ki, ocean of energy. I like it. And then they have all of these like hidden meanings because, you know, it's because it's Japanese and there are no simple translations, and because it's Japanese stuff that's talking about metaphysical concepts. So a Buddhist writer called Charles Muller said the notion of the Tanden in Japan, often referred to by the vernacular hara, is of central importance to its performance arts and its martial arts, where it is taught that the physical and mental energies should be gathered there rather than in the head or the shoulders or any other part of the body. And there's in Zen practice they talk about it as well. We put our mental concentration in the hara. It's a point in our body that generates chi, energy. It's approximately 2 inches below the navel. Now that phrasing, generates chi, is really important because it's not just a point where we connect with source, it is a point where we generate our own energy. So in shamanism we talk about power, personal power, the raw energy that we use in order to do stuff, and we talk about soul, which is our essence, it is part of our eternal life force. And if we actually look at these ideas from Japan about this Japanese concept of the Tanden, they're kind of talking about the same thing. They're talking about personal power and essence that we are born with, that is an essential part of us. And more than that, as well as it being a vital center that we work from, what we also talk about is the center of our spiritual energy. They talk about this a lot in Aikido. I cannot remember the name of the guy who founded Aikido because I never could pronounce it, but he was around at the same time as Uzui when Uzui was developing the system of Reiki. They did know each other. We do have, you know, records of that, notes of that. So in my mind, you know, like the French salons where all the poets were sitting around like having philosophical discussions, in my mind, that's what was occurring with these kind of like Japanese energy workers as they were developing these new systems. No proof of that whatsoever, but I like it as an idea. But there's some really interesting stuff. Some of this, Uzui worked with this Tanden, the hara, from Reiki 1, and it is, everyone should be working from it regardless of levels, but there's some stuff in here that's really interesting around the Reiki 2 energies and some stuff around the Reiki master energies. So I'm just gonna like share this with you guys, and if you've got some of these teachings, then it will make sense. So here's what Franz Stein has to say. First, we need to develop the hara below the navel. It's the foundation for the other 2 centers. So remember, there's 3 centers in Reiki. Franz and Bronwyn Stein in the Japanese art of Reiki, they referred to those as 3 diamonds. And there is this idea in Celtic shamanism of the 3 cauldrons, which I said to lovely Nan, who is on this call, that doesn't sound like it's an old thing, but I stood corrected. I went and hunted it down like a nerd. It is an old thing. But I came across that in my early shamanic teachings, working from the 3 cauldrons. I just wasn't given the source material for it, so I thought maybe they'd just made it up. But I was really pleased to find it in Reiki, this idea of the 3 diamonds that they talk about. So they have the middle, the low Tanden, the hara is below the navel. The middle Tanden corresponds exactly with the heart chakra. It's right in the middle of the chest. And then the upper one is sort of third eye kind of area. And I think they correspond. Those 2 do correspond with the chakras as far as I can tell. When I feel them in my body, they don't feel like different places. So Franz Stein says, first we need to develop the hara below the navel as the foundation for the other 2 centers. This is why the hara is the most important one. Without a well-developed hara, you can't develop the other two centers properly. So at Shoden, first degree level, Azui taught loads of focus practices on the hara, and you had to master those before you could move on to Reiki 2 and get the symbols and the mantras and stuff, which were considered to kind of live further up in the body. And interestingly, the first sort of mantra, this is what the researchers say, and they seem to corroborate each other, the people who went and did research in Japan about how this was done. The researchers say that they worked, the first symbol that was given at Reiki 2 would have been the one that corresponds to Earth Ki, Earth energy. That's considered to correspond and be housed here in the hara, in the lower Tanden. So that's the point where they would operate from when they were first learning to use that kind of energy. Then you would move on to other symbols. The heart one is considered to be corresponding with what we refer to in the West as the distance healing symbol, the connection, Kotodama, this idea of that connection. Rather than using it as a distance healing thing, it's more about being able to build compassion and connect with other people and that sort of thing. That was considered to reside in the heart. And then up here, working with what we would usually refer to as the mental and emotional healing symbol, or heavenly ki, a sort of slightly higher frequency of it. Now remember, all of those aspects of Reiki are available to you at Reiki 1. You get your symbols and stuff, or chanting or whatever, at Reiki 2, but you're not being attuned to those symbols. You're being able to refine your connection and say, I only want to work with this bit of you're sort of narrowing the bit of the spectrum that you're working with. You're not getting anything external. So you can work with these ideas at Reiki 1 as well. The symbols and stuff are just portals into that. So Francine says, when these two centers start to merge completely with the lower Tanden, the center of the lower Tanden, we start to remember our true self, great bright light, Daikomyo, or soul. Now that is very delicious, and it's why I wanted to have the page handy, because it's, that wording is really important when we come to the hara defining that we're going to do in a bit. Remembering our true self, the great bright light, the Daikomyo, or soul. I am doing, I think it's at the end of the year, I'm doing one of these on Daikomyo, which is for the Reiki Masters. But if you are familiar with that wording, means something very specific to Reiki Masters, and it is about that great illumination. It's considered to be the emanation of bright light from the divine, and it corresponds with like an old pre-Buddhist Japanese god. I love that kind of stuff. Working from the hara and aligning these things means that we have access to our true self. It means we have access to the great bright light. It means we have access to Daikomyo. And Azui was teaching this at Reiki 1, because this grounding is essential to be a good Reiki practitioner, to be a strong energy worker. And I think it sort of grounds us. We can all get very like love and light and psychic visions and stuff, because that's all really nice. But we're supposed to be grounded in the body. The burnout rate among healers, even Reiki people, is quite high. And I think it's because of this focus. I don't know. Maybe it's because in the West, at the point that sort of Reiki started coming to us, we were all a bit kind of spiritually starved, maybe, a lot of us, like as a culture. So there was this whole thing where everyone was looking east for these like mystical teachings, and it was all kind of, we were getting all, oh yeah, energy and psychic work. And I mean, it depends how you grew up, but I mean, generally, that's not really the way we think about things. And so it was easy to ignore the sort of boring bits, like being in our own body. And also, I think a lot of us that are healers are perhaps more inclined to live up here, For me, I have no natural inclination to be present in my body. It is work I personally have to do every day. Otherwise, I'm off somewhere. And a lot of healers I know are like that and have that issue that they need to work with. And so the hara is one way. If we really work with that concept, it's a way for us to kind of step away from some of those things. Does that all make sense? Am I making great leaps and not I'm just going, look, it means we're connecting with an ancient Japanese god. When we connect to Reiki, we should always be connecting into the Tanden. When we're working on somebody else, you will know you can just put your hands on someone and it will just flow without you going, I'm going down here first and then I'm going to channel it through your hands. But if you do take the time to trace that path through the body and feel that connection, you develop that Tanden and the flow of Reiki energy becomes stronger. It feels like it won't. It feels like if you just let it just come straight out of the hand, that would be a neater flow. Surely just coming down to the heart center and coming out is easier. Surely that's stronger rather than going down here and then coming back out. But actually, if you experiment with that and play with that, if you are to put your hands on someone and work from the heart and then work from the Tanden, they will feel different to you, and one of them is stronger than the other. It's really worth doing these kind of experiments rather than just taking my word for it. But it's really worthwhile to do, because Azui was very clear. This is where we work from. This is how we become strong, and it would have been grounded. He was a bit of an old mystic, I think. I think he would have been a very grounded kind of guy. We know that he worked as a bodyguard. We know that he did martial arts. I'm pretty certain that I read somewhere that he could fight with swords, which I appreciate. I've definitely read somewhere that he didn't suffer fools, which sounds like they're kind of saying, I don't know. I like to think that he was just very grounded and had strong boundaries. But it might have been that he was even sort of, it's all very sort of grounded. I don't think he was a fluffy love and light kind of guy. I think he was a proper energy worker and a martial artist and a I think he was a visionary person. I think he was really interested in the mystical side of the work. But I think that he also cared about how it was grounded in the body. He was also a Leo, which I think I usually say about him quite a lot. Just as you all know, that is the best of the zodiac signs, and he was one of those. So I think he would have been, inclined to do the work in this sort of very precise and powerful way and be really grounded in the body as well as a mystic. I don't think he would have wanted to be sort of divorced from the physical. And we do know that obviously these weekend workshops and stuff that we do now, it's the way that we're set up to do it, but actually it would have been more like martial arts training in Japan. You would have gone along every week and just kept incrementally getting better. I would have liked to learn like that, but I don't think it's really practical for us, unfortunately. And so they would have been working to build that connection in the hara to a certain point before they would have been allowed to progress to Okuden level, where they would get mantras and symbols and stuff like that. Kind of like when you're preparing to get a new belt, when you do martial arts, you have to master certain things and then you're told you can apply for your grading. I imagine it would have been quite like that. So we're going to do the breath of truth. It sounds like, it sounds kind of sci-fi. I'd actually forgotten it was called that, because I always refer to it as the hara defining exercise. So if you did your Reiki mastership with anyone at Reiki Evolution, then you would have been given this as part of your master level trainings. But actually Azui was doing this from Reiki 1, and I do kind of, it's too much to overload people with in the way that we teach it. in the West, but I actually think it would be great if we all learned this at the beginning. So this is about building intuition, but in a way that's really grounded in the physical body. So it's in one of the intentions of hara defining is that it allows you to see more clearly and empathize more with what you're feeling from other people, but makes you a bit more distance from it, so you're less likely to take it on. And I find that an important little thing, because that's something that Reiki doesn't really lend itself to picking up too much of other people's stuff, but it is still a possibility in our mindset when we're talking to people who are suffering, because we're healers and we're naturally empathic to that. So this is one of the things that makes Reiki, really defining a strong hara, is considered to be one of the things that makes Reiki less dangerous in that way, less ungrounded in that way. So we get in touch with it by doing things like Joshin Kokyuho that we just did, and also Seishin Toyetsu, that's the other hand position that's used in the Hatsu-rei meditations. They're all really well known ways of working with the hara. This is not, strictly speaking, a Reiki exercise. It's much older than that. Apparently it's from the 8th century that the Shigendo guys were doing. It is there are Tendai branches of Buddhism that use this, so it's a real energy technique that would have been around. If you claim, well, all Reiki people claim lineage that goes back to Hawaii Takata in Hawaii. All of us have that lineage, everyone in the West. She is the one that brought it to the West. And she did work from the Tanden as well. But there's another sort of lineage of teachings. It is contested. The Reiki Federation don't like it. There is a guy called Chris Marsh who went to Japan and trained with a 103-year-old Buddhist monk called Suzuki-san, who I believe was related to Uzui and trained directly with Uzui and worked slightly differently than the Reiki Ryoho Gakkais that are in Japan, and worked very differently to how Hawaii Takata and that whole way of working that became Western Reiki. Like I say, some people do not want, accept that lineage. I actually really like the teachings that I've got that came down from Chris Marsh. They feel very true and very intuitive to me. And some of them were later found to be almost identical to things that were being taught in, the Reiju empowerments, for example. Chris Marsh was taught a method of doing that it turns out was also being done almost identical, but for two-hand positions in the Hiroshi Doi Ryoho Gakkais, like these kind of Reiki lodges there where people were being taught Japanese Reiki in very specific technique ways. So we do think there's a lot of crossover between some of it, but it's a bit more flowing, a bit more intuitive. And it was something that was apparently done by Uzui to build the strength within the hara to get to the point where you could then go on and do Reiki too. And so it's called the Breath of Truth. And according to Chris Marsh, there's a sect of this sort of martial art energy work sort of art called Shigendo that only uses this, the Breath of Truth. It's the only self-healing practice they have. They're like, you don't need anything else. You only need this. It is not Reiki, but it will make you better at Reiki. And there are 3 sections to it, really. The first one's just like focusing and calming down, but you can't skip that bit. So there's like a little introductory bit where we sit and just become still and become focused and breathe. Then we do something called the golden key flow, which sounds very fun. And that's just a little bit of breath work to get things going. And then we do the actual hara definition. And there's movements for that. So I'm going to talk them through it because it sounds a bit like, oh, it sort of feels like it's going to be a bit tricky to get a handle on. But once you get into it, it makes sense. And also, no one's testing you. And it's just something to kind of play with. So have a play with it. So when we sit down for like the sort of opening part of it, all you're doing is just sitting with your hands palms down on your lap or on your knees. Traditionally in Japan, they do this kneeling down. I do it sat cross-legged. You can do it sat on your sofa or on your chair. Ideally, and don't worry about it for today, but ideally you don't want to be in a position. At one point we bring our hands down, and what we want to do is be able to place our fingers on the ground. Now it doesn't matter if that's the floor or if it's the sofa or the bed that you're sitting on. It's a grounding thing. It's just that ideally you don't want to be having to like lean down to make that happen. You just want to bring it down. So if you were sat on the ground, you can see that it would just rest on the ground. So ideally that's what you want to be doing. So we sit in a comfortable position, close our eyes, and just spend a little while focusing the breath and calming down, getting that kind of inner stillness. And then traditionally you're supposed to open your eyes at this point, but only a little, and you're supposed to focus on a point that's about 3 feet in front of you. If you know me, you'll know that those numbers mean nothing to me. Like, I don't really understand distances. It's sort of over there. You kind of, and it's like a soft gaze, like a dropped focus, you know what I mean? Like you're not staring at anything, you don't have your eyes fully open, it's a soft gaze. So once you're kind of feeling centered, you sort of open your eyes. What's interesting about that is that you can start to see the energy moving if you've got that sort of visual facility. Then we come into the golden key flow. Now what this is to imagine your entire body surrounded by golden light. I don't know if there's anyone who tends to see Reiki as golden. Generally people see it as like purple or they see it as white, but this very specifically works with golden light. You're surrounded by that on all sides, and keeping your hands palms down on your lap, you breathe, but you're not breathing the energy in through your nose. You're not taking it in through certain parts of the body. It's like your whole body is breathing as like one organ. So you are breathing and you take the energy into your Tanden. And when you breathe out, you release out through the whole body into the aura of golden light that's all around you. So you're drawing in this sort of universal golden light from your entire body in all directions, focusing it into the Tanden, and then you breathe it out through the whole body. Not moving, these movements are just me being golden light. So you're spreading it out. It's like a wide sphere basically of energy that's coming in. And you do that breathing, the golden key flow, for about 10 breaths, maybe more if you need to. We might do it just a little bit longer today. Then once we do that, then we come into the movements. And you start by, it's going to sound weird and complicated. Remember that while we're doing it, the breath is the same one that we've just set up. So we do not change how we move the energy. We work from the Tanden for the whole of our body surrounding. We breathe in through the whole body, we breathe out through the whole body, and we keep doing that throughout. The movements are very interesting to me because they feel very solar and very magical and very that great bright light. You come into, first of all, Gasho position. You do this just so briefly, and you want to be sort of chest height so you can sort of feel your breath on your fingertips. Then you slightly open your hands, so your thumb and forefinger are still together, but you're slightly opening it up and you bring it down to your solar plexus. I will sit up in a minute and show you that. Now, we're not breathing from or moving energy in the solar plexus. We are simply bringing our hand there for 3 breaths. So you hold it there, you breathe in and breathe out. Breathe into the hara, breathe out. Breathe into the hara, breathe out. And then on the 4th in-breath, you bring your hand up to the 3rd eye, basically, to the forehead. And this is considered to be the sign of the sun. It's present in all kinds of magical and energy working traditions, and the Reiki masters will recognize it because we use it for something as well. So we're starting with our hands on our knees or on our laps. We're doing our 10 breaths to just get that golden key flow going. Then we come up into prayer position, straight down into slightly opened hands to the solar plexus. We breathe in and out 3 times. Then on the 4th in-breath, we come up, make the sign of the sun. And then on the out-breath, we do a weird chant. And this is where we chant on with an N rather than an M. Apparently it's the Japanese way. And as we do it, we bring our hands down and we come down to rest with our fingertips touching the ground. As we do that, we are chanting Om. It's quite sort of nasally more than the Om is. And then we rest there for a moment just to feel that grounding, that energy. And then we bring our hands to cover the Tanden, the hara. Right hand first, left hand on top of it, just hovering slightly far apart like this. So I'll come up a bit higher. You won't be able to see my sign of the sun now, but you've seen that. So we are coming up. We are working initially with our hands on our laps. Then we come up into prayer position, down to the solar plexus. Breathe in here, breathe out here, breathe in here, breathe out here, breathe in, breathe out. Make the sign of the sun on the in-breath, and then on the out-breath, Om. Rest here for a moment, fingers on the ground. Then we bring our hands up to cover the Tanden. And we just spend a few moments in that space, that energy. And as we do that, we start to gather more energy. You do that a minimum of 10 times, apparently. I suppose you could do it more than that, but it's a lot of energy when you've done it a few times. So you would come up from this point of hovering over the hara to come up into prayer position and down, slightly open hands, solar plexus, breathe in and out 3 times. Each time you're breathing in, you are drawing in that big, you're surrounded, your whole body surrounded by golden ki. You're breathing that into the Tanden, and then you're breathing it out of the Tanden while you have your hands in this position. You do that 3 times, then you come up, sign of the sun on the in-breath, and on the out-breath, Om. Rest your fingertips on the ground. So it's like a lot of little moves, but it all makes sense when you're doing it. We're going to practice it together in a minute. But I'd like to remind you that what we're developing here, each time you do it, it gets a little bit stronger. This is our creative center, the seat of our soul in our body. It's our ability to show up as our true selves. It's intuition grounded in our physical bodies. Like, this is like the powerful stuff that Reiki is supposed to be about. So it's a really, really fun exercise to do, because although it strictly speaking isn't Reiki, it's older than that. By giving ourselves that containment and constantly building it, it's like any muscle or anything, you know, by going in and you know, being committed to consistently show up and develop the Tanden, develop the hara, it will become easier to feel. So even if you can't feel it at the moment because you haven't done it for a while, or you weren't working deliberately from the Tanden before, it doesn't actually take that long. And this would have been, I guess, like a daily practice. So I invite you to make it a daily practice for a little while, see what happens. It's quite a fun thing, and I think it's very magical. I think it's very yeah, golden light, dichomio, all of this big, great, bright light stuff. It's proper soul level stuff, but grounded on this sort of lower end of the frequency where we can feel it, where it's like actually in our body. So we are going to go through it, and I'll be talking you guys through it. I would suggest that you probably should mute yourselves because there might be some strange weird overtoning that comes in on Zoom. Zoom's not really set up for multiple chanting, but I will chant through it as we do it. Oh, that's another thing. Apparently, in the original way of doing it, according to Chris Marsh, you're supposed to do the on chanting on the in breath, not on an out breath. How? If maybe this is a great Eastern spiritual mystery that is lost to the mists of time, you know I've tried. You know you're probably going to try when you get off this call. I can't do it. If you can figure out how to do it, I can't. Neither can Taggart King, who I got this meditation from. But apparently, traditionally, that's how you would do it. It's something that we can do just, you know, as mere mortals. We'll just do it with our out breath. Any questions before we get started? You all look very studious. And if you want to keep your eyes closed, it might be an easier way to focus on it in the beginning. It's something that traditionally you're supposed to do it with eyes open. If you don't have too much sort of busyness in front of you, it does make it easier to see the movement of the energy. So that can be quite cool, but it might be distracting when you're first learning how to do it. So if you do need to close your eyes, please go ahead. And
hey, just quick question.
Yeah.
Which hand do we lay on the Tanden first? Left, so left over right or right over left?
Right hand first, left hand over the top. That is specified,
okay,
and I'll be honest with you, I don't really know why, because I can't feel the difference between it, but I am passing it on to you as it was passed on to me.
That's what I thought. But yeah, wanted to check.
Oh, now we've got I've just just tried doing it on the in-breath. Leanne, do you want to demonstrate that for us?
Oh no!
Thank you.
Oh, that's the best time
That's what we're aiming for, guys. You're a true master.
Thank you.
Magnificent. Oh my gosh. So we are probably just going to do on the out breath if you're not as spiritually enlightened as Leanne is and you can't make that beautiful sound. I'll talk us through it all. I'll count you basically through all of the hand movements and hand positions. If you if it's not quite the right timing or whatever, don't worry about it. We're just experimenting today. As I say, if you think it will help you to keep your eyes closed, I think that it still works. So that might be a good way to learn it. But what I would say is that lying down doesn't work. You need to be upwards. You need to be sat upwards in order for this one to work. A lot of the meditations you can lie down, but not this one. So, gonna start by just closing our eyes, sitting comfortably, resting your hands, palms down on your lap. We're just going to come into stillness for a moment. We're just going to come into stillness. Settle your breathing. Don't worry about the Tanden. Don't worry about any connection to energy. Just coming into our center, finding some calm. When you're ready, if you want to open your eyes just a little and just settle an unfocused gaze a little way ahead of you, we'll begin the golden key flow. So visualize yourself completely surrounded by golden light. With every in-breath, your whole body breathes this energy into your body, into your Tanden. On the out-breath, you release through the whole body into the universe. Surrounded by that golden energy, keeping your hands resting on your lap. Just keep that breathing going. Breathe gold energy into the whole body to the Tanden. Breathe golden energy out through the whole body in all directions. We are completely surrounded by golden energy. Every in-breath, we draw it into the Tanden. Every out-breath, our body releases in all directions golden energy. And then we're going to now work through the hara defining. So bring your hands up into prayer position. Slightly part them and bring them down to your solar plexus. Keeping the breathing going into your Tanden. Breathe in through the whole body into your Tanden, golden energy. Breathe out through the whole body. Breathe in through the whole body into the Tanden. Breathe out through the whole body. Breathe in golden energy. Breathe out golden energy. As you breathe in, bring the hand up to make the sign of the sun. And as you breathe out, releasing the hands with the Om. Resting for a moment. Your fingers on the ground. Just take a moment to be here. Feel that energy in your hands and then bring your hands, right hand first, left hand covering it, hovering over the Tanden. Feel that powerful energy in your hara. And now we come up, hands into prayer position again. Slightly parting the hands, bring them down to the solar plexus and breathe in golden energy into the hara. Breathe out golden energy from your whole body. Breathe in golden energy to the hara. Breathe out golden energy. Breathe in. Breathe out. On the in-breath, making the sign of the sun. On the out-breath, chanting Om. Be here for a moment. And covering the Tanden, right hand first, left hand over the top. Feel that energy. Hands up into prayer position. Parting the hands, come down to the solar plexus. Breathe in golden energy to the hara. Breathe out golden energy through the whole body. Breathe in to the hara. Breathe out from the hara. Breathe in from the hara. Breathe out from the hara. Breathe in, make the sign of the sun. Breathe out, coming down. Om. Be here for a moment. Covering the Tanden, right hand first, left hand over the top. Be here for a moment. Come up into prayer position. Opening the hands, come down to the solar plexus. Breathe in golden energy to the hara. Breathe out golden energy out. Breathe in golden energy in. Breathe out golden energy out. Breathe in golden energy in. Breathe out golden energy out. Breathe in, sign of the sun. Breathe out. Om. Be here for a moment. Covering the Tanden, right hand first, left hand over. Be here for a moment. Come up into prayer position. Parting the hands down to the solar plexus. Breathe into the hara. Breathe out golden energy out. Breathe in to the hara. Breathe out of the hara. Breathe in to the hara. Breathe out of the hara. Breathe in, hands up, make the sign of the sun. Breathe out. Om. Rest here for a moment. Cover the hara, right hand first, then the left. Be here for a moment. Hands up into prayer position. Open the hands to solar plexus. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in, make the sign of the sun. Breathe out. Om. Rest here. Right hand over the Tanden, left hand over the right. Be here. And we'll do it one more time. Hands up into prayer position. Part the hands, come down to solar plexus. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in, make the sign of the sun. And breathe out. Om. Take a moment to be here. Feel how your hands feel different. Bring the right hand over your Tanden, left hand over the right. Feel how this feels different. Now just come into prayer position for a moment. Feel into your energy body. Feel into your belly, into your hara. Feel the warmth and energy that might be there. Any difference you might feel. And if you can't feel it but you've intended it, then know that your hara is going to strengthen and grow the more you do it. That it's going to bring you closer to your true self, closer to your ability to express your true self and to be in alignment with the seat of your own soul. And know that as a Reiki person, it will give you access to the ocean of ki that resides within your own being. It will keep you grounded and keep you strong. And now, a couple of deep breaths, rubbing the hands to close. Now that was 6, maybe 7. It's suggested that you do at least 10. And you can feel that it's a lot of energy already without even 10. It's a proper practice. It's not a simple visualization. You've got to keep sort of remembering where you are, and there's movement, and you want to do that chant out loud on that out breath where you're bringing your hands down. You want to make that on sound, and all of that sort of generates energy in the body, and it actually feels quite powerful. It's quite a strong meditation. How's everyone doing? Anyone want to share or ask any questions? You're very quiet today. That is all good. If there's no sharing, so no question. Oh, no, there is. There's a Leanne. Hello, darling.
I was very surprised at how through the different motions at different times you had more energy in different parts, and it changed throughout all of it. And when you said about focusing on your hands, when like right at the end, I actually saw my hands it was like bare branches, but with like all the little twigs and all like so like the representation was like all different panels of energy that are able to come out through that. It was quite amazing. It was cool. I liked it, but it was very powerful. Very powerful.
It's a really strong practice. It's one that I was like, why don't I do this more? So I did it like every day in the lead up to my mastership, and then it's one of those things that I sort of go back to every now and again. But because it's not strictly speaking a Reiki thing, I don't always remember to do it. I'm always doing my Reiki, I'm doing my Hatsure, I'm doing my healings and stuff. But this is really in line with some other work that I'm doing at the moment, so I get to inflict it on all of you so that I can just justify spending more time doing it, which works for me. But it's really, really strong. It's one of those things you need to adjust your breathing in it. It's hard to do in a group. When you're doing it on your own, you need to time your breathing to make sure that you don't want to be taking in loads of energy and taking out loads of energy, because that can become because it's such a strong practice, much more so than Joshin Kokyu Ho that we did at the beginning. It's totally different feeling to that, right? It's much stronger, much more powerful. So you could make yourself a little bit lightheaded if you don't get the breathing right. So make sure that you're settling into a rhythm that feels good for your body. And do try and do it 10 times minimum. But I don't know that I've ever sat there and gone, I'm going to do 30. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure I have. Frankly, that does sound like something I would do, but I don't recall ever sort of making it to the end of doing a really long practice of it, because it's actually a really, really strong, and it would become, so the point of it is to become more stable, not less. Sort of somewhere between 10, 15, maybe a little more than that. But you don't want to be there all day doing it, because you can feel it would actually become a bit much, because it's really powerful. Does anyone see Reiki as like the golden energy generally, or do you work with different colours? You see it as gold, do you, Leanne?
I do, yeah. I get a gold. And it's quite a. I would say maybe that's been like in the past 2 years that's come in.
Okay, it's a
But
change.
it's a very goldeny energy that can come in. It used to be purple and white, but it's changed recently to the more golden. So yeah.
This is why you're able to chant on the in-breath, my friend.
I don't think I did it very well, let's be honest. I looked like I was going to die.
It's such a weird thing.
I felt I quite mastered that one. But I did want to say how very grounded I felt after doing that.
Yeah.
It's a very, very grounding
It's very grounding.
experience. It's nice.
Yeah. And oddly, if you don't get the breathing right or you do it for too long, you could start to spin off and feel less grounded. So it is sort of, you've got to keep it within those limits for your body and for your own breath work. But then, yeah, it does feel really grounding. And it's really good for us as Reiki people. It's easier to do treatments on ourselves, on other people, and also to just move around the world as like a big golden badass. That's what we want, right? It's like, this is grounding, it's gravity, it's a proper center in your body. That's what Reiki is supposed to be. This was Azui's intention, for us to connect with Earth Key in this deep sort of reservoir of energy that's in the body. And it's where we generate our own energy from as well. So ideally, in Japan, they do like calligraphy from the Tanden. And they do all their sort of arts and painting from the Tanden. So it should be developing our creativity also. So those of us that have books that are not yet finished or published, hello, maybe we'll start getting some of that out. So doing this isn't just to improve us as energy workers and Reiki practitioners, although it does do that. The idea really, think again, this is sort of where the mind and the heart meet. This is the seat of the soul in the body. It's the daikomyo, the bright light, the great bright light. It's the true self. So just a small little topic for today's Reiki Skills Lodge. And we've even finished with a few minutes to spare, which never happens. So if you guys have any more questions or any more sharings, speak now. Otherwise, I shall release you into the world as truer, shinier, goldener versions of yourselves. We're all good. We're all grounded.
Can I just say thank you? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, you too.
It's nice to see all your
And me, I said thank you.
Thank you, Cherry. It's so good to see you. It's so good to see all of you. And I know that there were others that signed up that will be watching on the replay. I'm going to send the replay to all of you. And then, so you can catch up and go over it again. But do practice it on your own time. And let me know how you get on. If you have any great creative breakthroughs or just become really strong. I want to know all of the outcome stories, please. You know I love that stuff. There's more of these coming. There's one just about every month, I think, this year now. I've actually put a list of them on the page. I can't remember what the next one is. Maybe it's Shokure, maybe it's distance healing. I can't remember. So every now and again there'll be one that's only for Reiki 2s and above or only for Reiki Masters. But sometimes they'll be for all. So I will keep you guys posted. Thank you for coming. It's nice to see you. Look how hot I am now. I'm doing that. I'm all pink, like Aunt Sally. I will see you guys soon. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.